Tottenham Hotspur's preseason has been marked by dynamic attacking football that has become the team's hallmark under Ange Postecoglou. During the preseason, Postecoglou has maintained his aggressive style of play whilst addressing several key deficiencies from last season. Here's how you can successfully recreate Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur preseason tactics in FC 24. Last season, Ange Postecoglou stuck to two formations in particular, the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-3-3. It did vary and depend on the personnel that were made available to Postecoglou, and the same can be said for the preseason. They've used either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. Now, in both games versus the likes of Bayern Munich, they used either or formation. The first game, I think it was a 4-2-3-1, and the second game, it was a 4-3-3. These formations are key to how Ange Postecoglou wants his side to play, of course, with the inverted fullbacks, but he has gone and made several changes to the tactical tweaks or even the personnel instructions in order to try and shore up their defensive frailties that they witnessed last season, or even try and get the best out of the attacking options that they might have further forward. Onto the tactical approach, and just like with last season's tactics, I have set the tactical vision to wing play, as Postecoglou does like his wingers attacking from those wider areas and having a good combination between the likes of the inverted fullbacks, the wingers, and even the central midfielders, who you will see rotating into those wider areas and trying to attack from those wider regions of the field. So that is why the wing play approach is best suited for this Tottenham Hotspur side. As we take a look at the defense and the defensive style, you will see that I have set this to press after possession loss, as this has become a core fundamental element to Ange Postecoglou's system, especially the defensive system that he does look to employ. You want to have that team aggressively pressing up the field, the front line, followed by the midfield pressing aggressively, making it very difficult for the opposition to establish that first phase build-up play. You'll also see here that with the aggressive style of play that you are looking to implement, the team's width should be set to 65. Now, I did mention this in my Manchester United tactics, but when you try and spread the team out on the defensive scale, you do want to try and get involved in the passing lanes and angles, implementing that aggressive press, and it does tend to lead to a lot of turnovers for the opposition, and in your favor, that can lead to a few counter-attacking opportunities that might lead to a goal or two. You'll also see here that with the depth, Ange Postecoglou is famed for his high line for life approach, and that will be set to 90, implementing a very high line, a very aggressive pressing structure, but also it will get the centre-backs nice and high up the field and have them very involved in the attacking play, trying to establish that offensive platform for the midfield and the attackers to build up off of. The offensive approach for Ange Postecoglou's side is all about pace, looking to win the ball, recover it, and then play it further forward. Having those vertical passes will be key in successfully unlocking the opposition's backline areas. You do tend to see at times the fullbacks and even the wingers looking to make those extensive runs further forward, trying to have a bit more of a direct passage of play at times. So the fast build-up will be essential. You will still be able to build out from the back, as that is also a key element to how Ange wants to play, but with the fast build-up implemented, it will get those inverted fullbacks higher up the field and into those more attacking positions for your side to successfully go ahead and use. You'll also see here that I have set the chance creation to balanced, as this will incorporate various different aspects of the possession-based brand of football, the direct play, as well as the forward passes, as you do tend to see the double pivot at times, or even the single pivots, progress higher up the field, trying to overload and overwhelm with those forward runs, and you will tend to see quite a lot of overloads occurring, or you might see a possession-based brand of football that we have linked so well with an Ange Postecoglou system and the Spurs team from last season. So you want to incorporate those various different aspects whilst also having that direct play with those wingers and those fullbacks making those runs in behind. Now, if I think back to my previous Tottenham video, I'm pretty sure the width of that team was also set to 75, and I am quite happy with leaving it on that. You do want to have a decent amount of stretch in your team. You want to try and, pull the opposition's defense on a horizontal plane out wide to those wider positions, opening up a lot of space centrally for your midfield and your striker to work into and work with. And you are trying to attack from those wider zones, so a lot of your attacks will be stemmed from those wider areas of the pitch. As for the players in the box, of course, Tottenham are well known for being able to fire in crosses across the face of goal or cutback opportunities, and that is something that they will tend to do, especially with the new addition of Donovan Solanke. So you do want to try and feed the striker, you want to feed those central attackers making those runs into the box, and with it being set to 7, it does allow for a decent presence of Tottenham players to be in and around that attacking zone. Finally, the corners and the free kicks, as per always, should be set to 4. For the individual player roles and instructions, starting off at the front with the striker in Kulusevski, who has been deployed largely as the number 9 during the pre-season, and I have heard that a lot of Spurs fans are saying that Ange Postecoglou doesn't really like him out wide on that right-hand side. He might see him as more of an interior player, more of a player that can be deployed in that number 10 position, which does offer a few alternatives for the Maddison role, but for the time being, Kulusevski was played as the number 9, and he did a very good job. So the support runs will be set to drift wide, as we did see a fair interchange between the likes of Son and Kulusevski, or whoever was deployed on that left-hand side, with Kulusevski drifting out wide at certain moments and even drifting out to the right-hand side. The attacking runs should be set to mix. Now, I did trial him on the false 9 role, and that would have him dropping deep too much. We did see quite a few times he would make those runs in behind. He also would hold the ball up very effectively and efficiently up front. So you do want to implement the mix attack run type, as well as having aggressive interceptions, looking to try and be that line leading, pressing monster that more so Ange Postecoglou does require from his natural center forward. And then finally, the defensive support should be set to basic, as he does tend to drop quite deep at times, and at other moments he can choose to stay further up the field and be an outlet for a potential counter-attack. The number 10 role of James Maddison does tend to drop quite deep at times, linking up very effectively with the likes of a Bissouma, the likes of a Archie Gray or a Bergville, or even a Saar. So we do want him to be able to drop deep, help support the defense, but also take up those deeper starting positions when you do win the ball back in your defensive third. The support on crosses should also be set to stay on the edge of the box, although every now and then you will see him creeping into that attacking zone, because we have set the players in the box to 7, so he will make those occasional runs into those deeper attacking areas. But the most important feature for this role is James Maddison being able to pick up the pockets of space. Even the likes of Bergville, when he was deployed in this role, was also able to drift all over the place and be very effective in every phase of play, whether it's the build-up play in that first phase, or the midfield third, or even higher up the field on the edge of the box, looking to try and facilitate the offense. And that is something that James Maddison has also been able to be very productive in doing, popping up in the half spaces, looking to function in those pockets of space that do generate from the amount of movement that is created through this Tottenham team, and more or less look to try and rotate the ball and facilitate a lot of the offensive movements that we have seen that have brought a lot of success to the side. Finally, the interception should be set to aggressive, as your front four will look to aggressively press higher up the field and try and prevent the opposition from playing out of the backline areas. For Brennan Johnson, who was deployed as the right winger, he would be set to come back on defense as well as stay wide. Now, every now and then we would see him drift slightly more central, but it was more so out wide, hugging the touchlines, looking for the ability to try and stretch the play, having the likes of Maddison, Kulusevski, and Son bouncing in between, what he was providing, and the likes of Pedro Porro providing those underlapping runs. And of course, he would also look to try and penetrate the opposition's backline, providing a solid outball down that right-hand flank, in order to have him get in behind and be a direct attacking feature to the side. And then finally, the interception should be set to aggressive with a balanced crossing run. Every now and then you saw him in the box. Every other time you would see him on the edge of the area looking to try and rotate the ball, or potentially whip in crossing opportunities for the attackers in and around that attacking zone. Onto the opposite flank, and Son would be set to maintaining a basic defensive support. So just like with Kulusevski, he could choose at times to drop quite deep and help support the defense down that left-hand side, but also he could be the outlet ball further up the pitch in certain moments, depending on how the game is going and if the side are needing a potential outlet going forward. The chance creation paired up with the support runs is set to come short as well as free roam, and this will get Son out wide at times, or even attacking the half spaces, linking up very effectively in those central zones with a Maddison or Kulusevski, and will also allow him to effectively, especially when the likes of Kulusevski does drift out wide, it will allow Son to drift into that center forward role himself and play more so as a striker. We'll also see here that the interceptions are set to aggressive, and because Son is so good at being able to put the ball in the back of the net and really be the spearhead to this attack in certain moments, and there were moments last season where he was that, you want him positioning himself in the box for those attacking opportunities to be able to put the ball in the back of the net himself. Now, last season Spurs did suffer quite a lot against the transitions. Their natural defensive structure wasn't really set up to try and defend against the potential lightning quick counters that they did face. And against Wolves, for example, where they conceded 2 late goals and ended up losing the game, that was highlighted in full effect. Now, I do think that Ange Postecoglou has somewhat remodeled his midfield zones in order to try and prevent and protect against those potential lightning quick counters. And more so, a lot of those counters came from the wider areas. Now, it will be the role of Bissouma and Saar, or it could be Archie Gray and Bergville, or even the likes of Benson Core. They will have the roles of trying to defend in those wider spaces, and so far what we have seen from Spurs, it has proven to be a bit of a success. Now, obviously, once the season starts, we will see a bit more of that, but for the time being, for your double pivot specifically, you want the likes of Bissouma and Saar to be able to cut pass lanes, of course maintaining that natural breaking up role that they had last season, but more so in those slightly wider areas. And that is down to the fact that we have stretched the defensive structure just a little bit more in order to try and get them into those slightly wider zones. You will also see that I have deployed the likes of Bissouma and Saar in that balanced attacking support role, so they can get forward and the other one can stay back, and you'll see this nice tandem working for your double pivots. Now, the most important thing is the positioning freedom. When the fullbacks invert into the midfield, you want the likes of Sa and Basuma to naturally drift out wide. Now, Basuma will do it a little bit more because the likes of Son will have that free roaming role. But both of them will drift into those wider spaces, looking to collect the ball, combined very efficiently and effectively with your wider attacking players. Now, again, the cover the wing approach is also vital because when your fullbacks invert and they get high up the field, these are the two players that will look to protect in those slightly wider areas and specifically protect against those lightning quick transitions. Now, the area that took a lot of people by surprise last season was the role of the inverted fullback. Now, Spence and Poro have done very well, and I think Dolan, I'm probably butchering the kid's name, I forget his name, but the kid that was deployed as the left back that was getting forward and almost playing as a left attacking midfielder at times, who's actually an attacking midfielder, by the way, he's also done very, very well. But I've used Spence and Poro for the example here, and more or less, the instructions won't really change. You want both of them to join the attack, have aggressive interceptions, invert for the run type, and of course, step up. You want your fullbacks to be very proactive when out of possession of the ball, pressing high up the field, looking to step up and impose themselves on the opposition, looking to add to that counter-pressing measure that Ange Postecoglou does want. And they can do this without having to fear of any potential counterattacks happening because the likes of Basuma and Sa or your double pivot will be able to cover in those slightly more wider defensive areas that more naturally your fullbacks would have to cover in general. So you want them to be very aggressive, very attacking, and also invert into the midfield zones. Now, I do know that the likes of Archie Gray was deployed as a centre-back, but I have used Davies as well as Dragushin. Now, both of them will be set to step up, as this will be an element that Ange Postecoglou does want from his side, being very aggressive and imposing. We've seen it with the fullbacks, and we will also see that with the centre-backs. Now, this will help them cut out potential, direct balls into the striker, having them be very aggressive, sometimes having them intercept the play before it even gets to the striker's foot, and therefore you can look to try and break up and disturb the play, that more direct attacking, aggressive play from the opposition. So for the role of Vicario, he will be set to maintaining the cautious approach with crosses, as he's not proven really to have a very aggressive mentality when trying to claim those aerial balls. And in the latter stages of last season, people found that out and they were able to more or less bully him in the air, make sure that they stuck a physical centre-back or centre-forward on the more nimble goalkeeper, and that tended to get the best of him in certain moments. But one area that he is quite good at is being able to sweep up, read the game, read those killer passes just in behind the backline, which will be pressing nice and high. So you do need a sweeper keeper, but also the likes of Vicario, yes, he's made one or two mistakes in pre-season, but playing out from the back has proven to be a very strong element to his game, and he can more times than not find an elusive quick pass into the centre-backs or the midfield, or a further pass into the forward line and progress the attack from there on out. Now, as mentioned before, the 4-3-3 has also been a staple in Ange Postecoglou's reign at Spurs. He's alternated between this formation and, of course, the 4-2-3-1. Now, in the second game versus Bayern, where they ended up losing 3-2, there was a bit more of a solid offensive platform to build up off of, but also providing a very decent defensive area and elements to the game, and that is down to the role of the defensive midfielder. Now, before we get on to the individual player roles and instructions, we will take a look at the tactics, and as you can see here, I've made no tactical tweaks or changes whatsoever. Now, essentially, with the Ange Postecoglou system, they have one way of playing, and that leads me to believe that there wouldn't be that many tactical tweaks or changes needed or required. They would still press aggressively, they would still press in that very similar, states of play and structure, and for the offense, you would still want that quick transition build-up, the fullbacks inverting and getting high up the field, looking to attack as much as possible, linking up with the wide players, and also, of course, having the possession-based brand of football, or even the more direct play, or at times the overloading, deep running midfielders getting higher up the field and looking to overwhelm and create overloads in those more attacking zones. So that is why I've made no major changes whatsoever. Now, along with the tactics, there will be a few players here that maintain very similar roles. Of course, the goalkeeper as well as the back four will all maintain the same, instructions and tactical approach. You want the fullbacks inverting into the midfield, you want them being very aggressive, stepping up, and the same goes for your two centre-backs. You want them to be able to step up and impose themselves on the opposition's backline area. Of course, with the two centre-backs, I forgot to mention this, but they are very good at being able to play from the back, collecting the ball from the likes of Vicario, spraying those longer passes further forward. Of course, the likes of Romero and Mickey van der Ven, more so the likes of Romero, they are quite capable of playing those line-breaking passes or even the long ball pass, switching the player into the opposite flank. Now, things start to change a hell of a lot when we look at the defensive midfielder. The likes of Bissouma has kind of been deployed as a defensive midfielder, like a proper defensive midfielder, not just a defensive midfielder that can roam forward. Largely, he has been one of the players that stays back, having the inverted fullbacks bomb forward, combining very effectively with the two number 8s higher up the field, and of course the wingers and the striker. But Bissouma has very much played just in front of that back line, almost formulating a back 3 when, higher up the field and looking to attack the different phases of play. But he's also been able to drift and try and pick up the wider runners if needed, looking to try and defend against the potential lightning quick transitions. So for the defensive behavior, you want him to be able to cut passing lanes, but the most important thing is for the attacking support, you want him to stay back while attacking, offering a bit more of a defensive solidarity to the natural structure of the side. The interception should be set to normal, and then finally be the deep lying playmaker, having him drop into that space, especially in that first phase build-up play, collect the ball from either the centre backs or the goalkeeper, and then look to progress it forward, or even collect the ball in those deeper areas. And like Bissouma really did so well in that first 10 games of last season, collect the ball and then drive at the opposition with it, looking to create overloads higher up the field and then lay off passes to try and more or less unlock the opposition's backline areas. And last but not least, you want him to cover the central zones, having him drop between the likes of Davies and Dragushin, formulating that back 3 kind of, and more or less providing a solid stability to the defense in those transition areas. The two number 8s of Maddison and Sarr, and like I mentioned earlier, could be Archie Gray and Bergville, although I do suspect that Archie Gray will mainly be deployed in the Bissouma role in a 4-3-3. But for the time being, Bergville and Sarr, or Maddison and Sarr, they'll both have the same roles and instructions, and that will be get forward. You want them getting higher up the field to vacate that space to encourage your fullbacks to invert into those central zones. So that's why get forward will be a necessity, as well as it does add to the attacking element and the overloads that you will experience higher up the field in that final third. The support runs will be set to maintaining a balanced crossing run. You want them in and around those attacking zones, looking to stay on the edge of the box, rotate the play, facilitate the potential offensive movements, but also every now and then making that late run into the box themselves to possibly get on the end of a potential cutback or a crossing opportunity. The interceptions will be set to normal, and then finally cover the wing and drift wide. You want them to be able to interchange in those wider zones with the likes of Son and Johnson, looking to try and combine very effectively, drawing out the opposition to those wider areas and opening up space essentially for the inverted fullbacks and even the likes of Bissouma every now and then making that attacking run further forward. And then as for Sarr, he'll have an identical set of instructions and an identical role compared to Maddison. You want him to be able to cover the wing, drift wide, get forward, balance crossing runs, and normal interceptions. The front 3 will also still maintain their same roles and instructions. You want the likes of Johnson to come back on defense, always looking to drop quite deep at times and help support down the right-hand flank. Staying wide will be essential, looking to try and generate a lot of the width down the right-hand side, as well as looking to penetrate and be a bit more of a direct attacking threat down the right flank areas. And then, of course, aggressive interceptions and having a balanced crossing run. The same can be said for Kulusevski, drift wide, maintain a mixed attack run support, as well as aggressive interceptions, and then a basic defensive support. Of course, dropping a bit deeper in certain moments or being an out there ball for a potential counter-attack. And as for the captain in Son, he'll also be set to the same instructions as before, looking to have him be a very good operator down that left-hand space, but also drifting inside and helping lend a hand in the attacking outlets in those central zones. And there we go, people. That is how I would successfully go ahead and recreate Ange Postecoglou's preseason tactics in FC24. I do hope you have enjoyed the video, and if you don't mind smashing that like button down below, as well as subscribing, that would be fan-damn-tastic. We are on the road to 10,000 subs, and of course the Premier League does start tonight, which I am looking very, very forward to. You guys can let me know some of your Premier League predictions down below in the comment section, as well as if you would like to join up with the conversation on Discord, we have a Discord server. The link will be down below. We're discussing a lot of Premier League at the moment. We're discussing a lot of FC25 at the moment. So if you are interested in some of the tactics and all that good stuff, join up with the Discord. Like I say, the link will be down below for you guys to go ahead and click on. Anyways, until the next time, until the next one, I hope you have a smashing goddamn day, and I'm out of here. Peace.